happening? Welcome back to the Uncommon Element podcast. Very excited to be joined by my friend and my trainer, Mark Zalmanoff. All right. This guy is a badass. He may be small, yet he is mighty. All right. We call him the Fitness Ninja. It's a very interesting nickname to have, but he is on a mission to make America fit again. Side notes on him, as I've gotten to know Mark over the course of, really, we met like in May of last year, so we're getting close to a year, is he has an incredible ability to make people feel very comfortable in his presence, which is awesome, because if you ever get the opportunity to train with Mark, he will kick your ass with a smile. And it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. So, just some background on him while you guys get to know him is Mark is a published author of Make Good Choices, which is an awesome book. I think that they're actually utilizing this in some of the elementary schools or middle schools out there to help with like positive attitude and reinforcement, which is awesome. Multiple business owner, Apex executive, coach, speaker, but really what intrigues me and what I'm most astonished about, in my opinion, are a few things here. Is Mark's ability to work with clients over a long period of time. I've been around fitness for 30 years. I have not run into very many trainers that are of Mark's caliber, which is amazing. And I feel very honored to have him here. He's got some damn good programming techniques that I'm not going to ask you what your secret sauce is. Okay. It's definitely a pleasure to get in there, because leg day is every day.
Leg day, baby.
Yep. But I think my favorite part about you, man, is your ability to smile at people when you know that they're just in pain, but you know that they're there doing the work. So I wanted to dig in a little bit on, your life and really just ask you, what got you into fitness in the first place?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man. Always enjoyed my time with you. So I know this is going to be a good one. Where did my fitness come from? So, I went to college to be a chiropractor. That was my path. And I got to organic chemistry and realized, no, that wasn't my path, actually. Yeah. I still, when you draw a hexagon that represents a carbon atom, and you put a little line up at the top right, and it's a thing, but if you move it to the top left, it's a different thing. And then if you put just the concept of it just blew me away. I had no idea what was going on. And so I had to pivot my entire life at that point, figure out a different college path, because I was in college at the time. And
sure.
So I went into kinesiology. I don't know that I ever intended to be, in the fitness industry for as long as I have, which is all my adult life. And I was never one of those kids growing up where I knew what I wanted to be. Like, I honestly, there was nothing I was so passionate about. And I'm like, man, when I grow up, I'm going to be, I don't know, like,
no astronaut aspirations, no
presidential. Yeah, I want to be a T-Rex. I don't know. I watched my dad, who was a salesman through and through. He ran his own car lot for years. We basically lived on the car lot, literally. But that man could just sell anything to anyone. And I just watched him operate. And at the time, I didn't know I was being taken to school. So, I learned a lot through him, and he didn't directly, I don't ever remember sitting down with him and him saying, okay, here's how you treat customers. And I just watched him, and he led by example. Cool. And I just learned how to treat people that way. And so that translates into a lot of things that I probably still do today, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But I never had these aspirations to be anything other than, all I really knew was I wanted to be successful. And I didn't even know what that meant. And and honestly, I don't know if I can tell you what it means today, because it constantly changes. But,
Yeah.
I switched my major to kinesiology really because I had so many credits that were science credits at that point. I'm like, well, it's the closest path to the degree right now. And I worked out for most of my life. So I was like, oh, this seems like something fun to do. So I got my degree in kinesiology, and there's not many things you can do with that. You either go be a PE teacher, which I knew I did not want to do that. I didn't want to work in public schools. You continue your schooling to be a physical therapist or, something along those lines. And I really, at that point, I had no interest in going back to school again. Or you go be a personal trainer. Now, you don't need a degree to be a personal trainer, but in the beginning years, I will say it served me well. It helped me to come in with a base knowledge. It helped me to have credibility, I think, where other people didn't at the time. And again, I don't put any stock in the degree and your ability to coach other humans. But, as a very young coach, 1 year in, 2 years in, when you're talking with a prospective client and you go, oh yeah, I have a bachelor's in kinesiology. They're like, oh, it holds a little weight. Now it doesn't mean shit, but it did back then because, I didn't know a whole lot. I really didn't know what I was doing for a while, but, people just kind of put you a little bit higher up on the ranks because they saw, okay, you were dedicated to a mission, getting your degree. You completed that. So it shows that you were willing to invest time and money and all those things into furthering your education. And at the time, the people that I was talking to appreciated that. And so very early on, I started to kind of figure out, okay, what do people actually want? Like, what are they looking for? Where's the value? And I'm talking, literally the first couple of years of coaching when I'm like, who knows what's going to happen? I've said it before, there's plenty of times in my career where I was a handful of clients away from having that big breakthrough, and also a handful of clients away from going to get a job somewhere.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but every time all I had to do was look around and I'm like, I really do enjoy this though. Like there was always a sense of peace, of belonging, whatever you want to call it, when I was in the gym. And I always enjoy the human interaction. And it was just a matter of over time cultivating that more, educating myself more, not necessarily about training. You kind of just, if you're in the gym long enough, you start to figure some things out if you're paying attention, but learning how to just deal with people. And that's, you're in the coaching realm now. So you're getting the full exposure of how do you get behavior change to occur? Because that's the hardest part of the whole process. There's 1,000 workout plans out there and they all work when people do them. But how do you get into somebody's head and get them to understand the meaning behind it and how powerful it can be when they just trust the process, they're consistent, and they're willing to do the work. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. I love that though. When you think about why people kind of fail in their fitness, right, is to your point, right, is they don't have the accountability. A lot of people know how to work out or know it's important for them to go and, exhaust their body or, get that dopamine rush, that you get from being in the gym, lifting heavy weights, running, pushing your body kind of. That's the only connection that I've ever found that is your mind and your body are working as one. And it's one of the places that you can find adversity early on in your life that really can't be taught. It's like it's self-motivation, right? And I had to really kind of thinking about this, about what I wanted to hear your take on is what do you think is the biggest element in terms of, utilizing fitness in your everyday life out and how it affects, your life, your relationships, your marriage, even your career? Like, how does that all transform?
So here's the deal. We live in the most comfortable time that humanity has ever known. We can order anything from anywhere at any time. I'm sure there's a website right now that I could get on and pay somebody to come feed me. Like legit, just cut my food up and feed, do the airplane. Here it comes. I'm sure somebody out there would do that for me.
Reminds me of Family Guy, dude.
And when you think about it, that's a fairly new thing in the span of humanity, right? 150, 200 years ago, people were still waking up going, man, I hope I eat today. I hope I can harvest the crop. Maybe it's time to slaughter the cow. I hope the weather doesn't change too bad. I hope I built my shelter strong enough to withstand the storm, the wind, the snow, the heat, whatever, right? It wasn't that long ago. So in the past 100 or so years, we've advanced so fast. And now here we are. We're inundated with information all day long. Like our brains can't absorb. That's why we have anxiety and depression. All these things that people suffer from, I truly believe are because of the comforts that we live with. So for those who want more out of life, we literally have to manufacture adversity. And not that, we all face things and jobs and money and divorce and relationships and all, that's the natural course. But at its core, we don't face adversity the way people used to. When you legit worried about eating and shelter, like basic human needs, that was all the adversity we needed. And so when you were able to get up and conquer those things, and you foraged for food, or you killed the thing, you built the shelter, that gave us that feeling of contentment. I got my family, we're all close. Nobody's on a phone because they didn't exist back then. You actually talk to people. So there was community that was built around that. And now we don't have that anymore. And there's pros and cons to it all. I like waking up and not worrying about eating. It's on my gratitude list. I'm like, man, I'm thankful I got food in my fridge. Like truly I am, right?
My egg white bites, buddy.
Egg white bites, baby. So when you look at, okay, what does exercise mean for humans? Number one, the average person doesn't move hardly ever, really. Again, because it's comfortable. We don't have to go out and get anything. So we have to manufacture that. Like, it's not your age and your metabolism that cause you to get fat. It's that you stop moving so much. That's why you get fat, and you eat too much on top of that, right?
Yep.
So we have to manufacture that adversity, which can be done in a gym setting or working out, whatever. It doesn't have to be in a gym. And I think it cures that innate thing that some of us, not everyone, but that some of us have, to want that feeling of accomplishment, of knowing that I'm serving a greater purpose than myself. I'm knowing that I'm providing for my family, because that looks way different now than it did just a couple hundred years ago. Providing for my family now means I make enough money that I can buy all the things that I need, so my family doesn't want anything of their basic needs, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at a setting like we have in the gym, where, in our gym, we have a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and high performers that, again, a lot of stress. It's a different type of stress, though. It's a mental stress. It's not a physical stress. But we can translate that hard work that we do in the gym. We can leave with that feeling of accomplishment, and then we can go conquer the day, because we know anything else that happens in our day is not physically challenging. It may be mentally challenging, it may be emotionally challenging, but doing that physical component gives us that edge to go do the things. Because, there's days where shit's going sideways in business or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but those burpees this morning were brutal. But having that confidence that you were able to push through, as mundane as it seems at the time, really does give some of us the edge. And again, it's not for everybody. Everybody doesn't take advantage of it. Everybody doesn't push the way a lot of us push to get to that next level.
Right. Yeah.
But I really do think a lot of it, just, you have to think about the evolution of man over time, and how quickly these last 100 or so years have changed everything about the way we do things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting that you brought that up, because I was just at a presentation last night where they were talking about that, right? Like 94% of families were farmers. Like in the 1860s, like over 90% were living in poverty, meaning that you didn't know where food or water was coming from within the next 24 hours. Now it's less than like 8% of the world lives in poverty, right? And like you can order stuff online, and like you're not gonna worry about it. Like,
I mean, if you're in the US, even if you're in poverty in the US, you're still doing better than the majority of humans in the world.
it's true. Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say is 1%, less than 1% now are farmers. That's a major difference, right? Like think about like the exercise, what that comes into. You think about the evolution of families, like the society, like having kids, so you can have like how many families you know now that have like 14 kids? Very rare.
Very rare.
Right?
Very rare.
It's not like you're breeding an army anymore. Like you don't need it, right? But I found that to be really interesting because what I also find to be a connection between those uncommon people that are in society right now, one of the biggest things is they exercise. They have an onus of that in their routine, and they don't break it. Like it's normally in the mornings. What you see with that out of the most for your clients?
We hear it all the time, like, do your workout first thing in the morning, right? And at its core, it doesn't matter when you work out. Like if 9 p.m. is your time and that's the time that you can be the most consistent, then go work out at 9 p.m. It's totally fine. Mm-hmm. But the edge that it gives some of us, again, when we're looking at being uncommon, when we're looking at hitting that next level and continuing to push and challenge ourselves, is that when you wake up early in the morning, most of the world is not up yet. And there's so many distractions. Like I said before, we're just inundated with stuff all day long. And, what's crazy is, we're in the gym at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., right? And at that time, because of the circle that we play in, it is active already. There's already people posted on social media and sending people DMs and memes and whatever. But for the average person, if you're up at 4:30 a.m., I guarantee you that, again, the average person, if you wake up at 4:30 a.m., there's like 1% of your circle of people that are up at that time. So to be able to get up and get something meaningful done before anybody else is even awake with no distractions, you can focus on you can focus on getting your mind right, you can focus on getting your body right. You've already won, and it's 7:00 and people are hitting snooze one last time and wiping the crust out of their eye to get up and go, maybe they grab a little bit of breakfast before they got to start their work, whatever that may be. But it's that edge. And I think too, knowing when you're aware of it, when you know that you've already accomplished more than most people will all day long, and it's only 7 a.m., that gives us that mental edge that we need to fight through some of the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I actually, when I put it in terms of like importance of priority, like family always comes first, but if you're not right with yourself and you're not focusing on the things that like have you performing at a high level, I actually put fitness in that category. That's what's going to make you perform at the highest level that you possibly can, right? And ultimately, if you slack on that stuff, what I've noticed, my body starts to crave it at a certain time. It gets into that habit. So when I don't have that 6 a.m. workout going on, it's like, what's happening right now? Like there's something wrong.
Yeah. Our buddy Mike, we were in a breakout session at our Apex meeting last week, and this one guy was talking about how he's not motivated to go work out, and he knows he needs to work on his fitness, but he's not doing it. But he has aspirations to be a speaker. And Mike said to him, he goes, go look up the top 50 speakers in the world, and I guarantee you none of them are fat. and I started thinking about it. Maybe there's one or two outliers in there, but the significance of that is this: as a public speaker and the best of the best, you're standing on stage influencing the masses. People are watching you. People will do whatever the fuck you tell them to do. Tony Robbins gets people to walk on fire, right?
Yeah.
And so but there's a persona that has to come with that. Because if you're going to get up there and encourage people to live a better life and to challenge themselves and get uncomfortable and all the things that basically they all say the same thing, just in a different way, then you have to be a representation of that.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, if you see somebody who's overweight, and I mean like overweight, not like, oh, he's a big guy. No, but like overweight, like, oh, you would die if I had you run across the room and do 10 push-ups.
Mhm.
You're not going to be taken seriously. And it doesn't matter what your knowledge, but you could be the smartest dude in the world. You could have the greatest speeches. You could be super motivational, but people are not going to take you as seriously as someone who takes care of themselves. And we're not talking about being super ripped and having an 8-pack and all that. That doesn't matter. But it's just it's the mindset behind, hey, I'm going to take care of me first, as you said, because I know if I do that, then all the other things in life I can handle to the best of its ability. But you have to be that example. And again, I just don't think enough people understand what it really means, because they either misinterpret it as, well, I don't have time to spend all day in the gym, and I'm not going to eat chicken and rice all day long. Those like preconceived old bodybuilder notions of whatever, when it's just an excuse to not do something.
Right. Yep.
But they just don't understand the power of what being healthy actually does for you. Because it's not about how much you can lift, even though that's fun. And it's not about how many rounds you can do of this workout, even though that may be fun for some people as well. But it really is, you and Drewby. But it really is the representation of what being a fit human means.
Yeah.
And my buddy Dustin Johnson, who's coaching in my gym now, he puts it well. He says, look, I work out so I can do anything at any time if anybody asks. So if you come to me and say, hey, you want to go hike? Sure, let's go. Hey, can you help me move this piano? Sure, let's go. Hey, you want to go on a bike ride? Sure, let's go. Hey, you want to go to the beach and take your shirt off? Sure, let's go.
Yeah.
And I love that approach, because he's attaching it to the actual real world and not just a performance-based thing.
Yeah.
So he said, hey, I just want to be prepared for whatever life throws at me and be able to say yes to it all.
I love that. The functional strength, right? The functional aspect of your actual fitness. Like, I see it too much nowadays, with people who are getting older, right? We're actually kind of in this interesting, I believe, interesting time where it's kind of almost like a flat rate in terms of percentages of the millennials, the baby boomers, and it's like 33 percentiles. Like the average age of people right now are anywhere between like 24 and like 34, if you look at it. But when I look at my parents and I look at, some of the older generations of people who even taught me that lasagna was something that was going to be healthy for me while I was a kid.
It's not.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're like, oh, cheese. Oh, it's like the cake, right? That you bake, right? Oh, it's got eggs, it's got flour, it's got milk, you're getting all that stuff. But the transformation over even, I believe, the last 15 years of the education now that's out there about, your diet being 70% of your, the way that you look and how you feel, versus the other 30% being a portion of, how you feel and how you look and how you're going to perform. Right. And those things just were never even available to us as kids. Like, I can actually appreciate the fact that, we're still in the time frame where dial-up internet was, I was still I'm one of the last, right? And that the internet didn't exist before, before I was born, right? So now that you have all this access to information, but you still see the epidemic of diabetes and all these other things that are happening, and getting it tied into fast food, into poverty, into, having 5 kids and being, not going grocery shopping because you're spending $250 to $400, right, on meals. So you're going to the drive-through and the fast food. Like, what do you say to people who are doing that unknowingly to their kids, the next generation that's coming through?
Yeah, it's definitely a generational problem, meaning that it's rooted in the way that we're raised. Unfortunately, impoverished areas suffer far worse than others there's things that they call food deserts. So if you look at a lot of inner city places that are impoverished, poor, whatever you want to call it, they don't have access to healthy food.
Right. Okay.
Like grocery stores sometimes don't even exist in those areas. And when McDonald's, when they can go get, a bag of burgers and fries and drinks for less than $10, and that's the easy solution, and it's cheap, and and at the time affordable, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And if somebody has to take a bus or a subway to go to the grocery store and buy chicken and rice and all those other things, it just, and any type of roadblock is not good. So what do you tell somebody like that? Number one, as you said, like, we all have knowledge now, so that's no longer an excuse. Like, if knowledge was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs, right? Yeah. But it's not the answer. Everyone in the US has access to knowledge, public libraries, free phones, whatever, we can all find it. So it's, what do you do with that knowledge? For people that really struggle, like, my advice is, you have to start somewhere then. Like, you can't overhaul everything. You're not going to change your diet and join a gym and, do all the things and get a new air filter in your house. And, like, that's not happening, right?
It's too overwhelming to try and tackle all that stuff at the same time.
So you've heard me say it before. There's only two things that you can control, that anyone can control. And that's our thoughts and our actions. We have zero control over everything else in this world. So if you fill your brain with knowledge and you begin to be mindful about your own personal health, forget everyone around you, for this conversation right now, you go, okay, I need to be healthier. So what does that mean? Then you just have to take action. So maybe it means you change nothing other than you start walking. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you got time for. You just start walking. Okay, great. Now we got that habit. We all have water, unless you're in Detroit, you don't have water. But if you're anywhere else, you got water, right? So, okay, what can I do next? I can start drinking more water. I hear that's good for me, which it is, by the way. Yep. Okay, let's start drinking more water. I'm not going to drink soda. I'm not going to drink Kool-Aid. I'm not going to drink whatever. I'm going to drink water moving forward. Okay, yeah. Cool. Now what? And really just piecing it together one by one. You don't need all the answers. You just need the next step. That's all you ever need for anything in life, for business, for relationships. Like, all you ever need is, okay, what's the next thing I can do? What does Mike always say? Win the next decision. What do I always say? Make good choices. Like, and when I say that, I mean the next choice. Just make the next choice a good one. Yep. Don't worry about 10 choices down the road. Don't worry about next Saturday. Worry about the next thing you're going to do and how can that action improve you in whatever it is that you want to improve. So is it easy? No, it's not easy. That's why our country is still fat. Like 70% of our population is obese or overweight, and it's not changing.
Wild.
The obesity rate is getting worse. What's interesting is the overall, like, overweight and obese percentages haven't changed a whole lot, but the obesity piece of that is getting worse and worse. And they say by 2030, half of US adults will be obese.
That's scary, man.
It's the health epidemic that nobody wants to talk about, right? And we have the power to control it, but the problem is, there's a lot of problems, but the biggest problem is people don't want to take responsibility for it. And I just got off a call earlier today with a doctor who is working on, basically he's working on a project that, for lack of a better term, cures Parkinson's.
Okay. So
he says, okay, if you're like, let's say you're level 4 Parkinson's, they can either stop it where it is or regress you 1, maybe 2 stages. So maybe you're at a 4, we can get you down to 3, like greatest case scenario, get you down to 2.
Sure.
If you're a 2, we can halt it at 2 for sure, maybe get you down to 1, maybe you don't have any symptoms at all anymore. If you're a 1, we can absolutely get rid of it. The majority of it's done with nutrition.
Wow.
Why are we having that conversation? Because it's easier for people to take a pill and just deal with it, quote unquote. It's the discomfort that they know, rather than change their lifestyle a little bit to actually solve the problem instead of putting a Band-Aid on something. But that's it. People don't want to take responsibility for it. And we've gotten in this culture where you can call it whatever you want. It's the easy way out or the quick fix or whatever, where it's like, oh, I could just take a pill. Okay, let me do that because I don't want to change my habits. Work out? No, I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. I'll just take the thing. And then ultimately it doesn't solve anything. And we're right back to where we were.
That's scary, man. I mean, because you think about what that's going to do to the country, the output, mental health, everything on that side. I mean, my dad's a scientist, right? He actually works, my brother's got muscular dystrophy. So he works now he's working on more of a passion project, but that the advancements in science nowadays, you can almost debate whether or not they're going to be good or bad for us. I mean, in certain cases, like Parkinson's, it's a horrible disease, right? Muscular dystrophy, horrible disease. But you look at some of the other, I would call them, fly-by-night solutions where you can drink some milkshake and it's all of a sudden going to melt fat off of your freaking body. Like that's not good for you. One, it's not sustainable. There are proper ways of actually creating good health and dropping weight that isn't the quick fix. It's not that 90-day result that you get with like P90X, these like crazy like things that we used to think were awesome because you could go through it, you'd be sore as hell, and then you'd stop at 90 days and then you'd be right back to square one 6 months later. Right. And to your point, right, is, where's the consistency and how do you create that consistency in your life and how do you prioritize it, right? Because what you mentioned is, hey, people are saying that they don't have time for that. Well, in reality, and it's an FYE kind of deal, right? Like, what would you say to somebody about where do you prioritize it? And how do you create that consistent schedule?
Here's how I explain it. First of all, we all have time for whatever we want to have time for. And at the base level, that's a shitty statement to tell someone. It really is. Like, I can admit that. It's just like saying, well, just eat less and move more. Like, that's shitty advice. Does it work? Of course it works. But is that shitty advice? Yes, it's shitty advice.
Yeah.
Tell the woman working 3 jobs to feed her 3 kids and she's a single parent that she's got time, right? So I'm not judging anybody. However, I do believe that we have time for what we want to have time for. Mm-hmm. For anybody that's ever had a kid, when you have a baby, that baby takes up an insane amount of your time. And if anybody ever waited until they had time to have a kid, we would not be here. Like, the human species would not exist because we wouldn't have time for it, right?
Yeah.
So you have a baby, and let's say you're the dad. So you didn't even, you have less responsibility in the baby phase, right? But you still have responsibility. There's still time and effort and energy that's taken away from whatever the hell else you were doing before that now is diverted to this baby. Well, what were you doing with that time before? I don't know. Maybe you were fucking around with it. Maybe you were working. Who knows what you were doing? Maybe you were super productive, but now that time is over here. Okay, well, where did it come from? And we're talking hours upon hours in a week, right?
Yeah.
Well, you made time. You figured it out. Even if you're working, you still figure it out. So you can't tell me that somebody doesn't have the time. The problem is people get in their head about what that time looks like. Well, I don't have time to go to the gym. Okay, well, don't go to the gym. Work out at your house. Well, I don't have space to work out. You don't have a floor? All right. You give me a 3x3 square.
Guarantee you got a floor.
I will destroy you in a 3x3 square. That's all I need. Maybe 4x4 if you're a bigger person. I don't know. Yeah. But again, there's always things that can be done, and it doesn't have to be this humongous undertaking. You don't need to buy the thing. You don't need to get new clothes. You don't need new shoes. You don't need to wait for the weather to warm up. You don't need a gym membership. Like, you don't need a lot of the things that people think they need. And they tell themselves that because it's a way out. It's an excuse. Oh man, I already get up at 6 a.m. Our crew would say, okay, well, wake the fuck up at 5 then, right? But most people would go, oh yeah, I understand. That is early. Yeah, that's really early. Oh yeah, you have a long day. Yeah, man, when you get home, you just want to relax. Yeah, you don't have energy to work out. like all that common excuses, right?
Yep.
And too many of us, I've been enabled by the people around me to stay average in certain aspects of my life.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I got intentional about being around better people, and not a judgment call on the person, but just around other people that are pushing and striving for more, that I'm like, oh, this is how it works. And now, I wake up motivated to go do more. I don't want to be the fucking weak link in the goon squad, and none of us would point at the other one and go, that guy's the weak link. Like, but that's the mentality of me and my close friends is I don't want to be the weak link. Like you work your ass off in the gym, and
I do.
and whether you realize it or not, there's people that are being motivated simply by you showing up and working the way you do. And it's directly, indirectly, whatever you want to call it. Like they see you over there doing the same workout they're doing, and they're like, fuck, all right. They got to up their game. They got to add a little more weight. They'll stick around and do one more round. Like all those things matter. And I internalize that too. I watch you work out. I see, Thomas throwing 800 pounds above his head. I watch all these people. So when it's time for me to work out, like you guys are in my head. Because I'm like, well, I can't slack off. They're in here busting their ass with the workouts I'm giving them. Well, I can't slack off then. And it's powerful that like the people matter. Yeah. So, if you're struggling and you can't seem to quote unquote figure it out and find the time and whatever, like find somebody that's already doing it. We say it all the time. Success leaves clues, and success also leaves a blueprint. Yep. So, go find that somewhere. It's free on the internet. I promise you, there's not many problems that can't be solved for free on the internet. We pay for coaching, for accountability and insight, but like you can solve most of life's problems with a Google.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's 100%. What I've found fascinating about the fitness industry and specifically is the movement more towards group workouts, right? Over the past, I'd say even like less than a decade, right? It went from like bodybuilding to people like not wanting to be super muscular, but wanting to be fit, seeing triathletes come through and seeing like all of these kind of building blocks that moved people into a different direction that made fitness attainable. Like you didn't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You didn't have to look like the guys on the front of the magazines of men's fitness. Like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I just don't think that that's sustainable for people who are trying to run multiple businesses like yourself or myself, or, doing those types of things, unless you have a full on commitment, which I think turns people off. Right. And the progression towards, the Orange Theories out there, the Mark Z Fitnesses, those things have changed the landscape for people to come in and actually like feel part of a community and be pushed by other people around them.
Yeah. I really credit CrossFit with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Regardless of whether you agree with the ideology behind it and whatever, the safety, like I really credit CrossFit with a reinvigoration in the fitness industry for that group model, because there was stuff before, but it was more of the class setting, like, Zumba, jazzercise, stuff like that. It wasn't like full-fledged training in a group setting. And then we had the boot camp model, which was mostly, a lot of calisthenics, a lot of body weight stuff. Some of that slowly started shifting. And that's what I did years ago. I worked at Lifetime Fitness and ran their boot camp program, but it was really like the beta 1 model for what I do right now. Mm-hmm. So it was a large group of people doing strength training all at the same time. And at that time, not many places were doing it. So along comes CrossFit, and CrossFit throws that competitive piece in that a lot of people were missing. So you're a former athlete, you're in your job for 8-9 years, you're bored as fuck. And finally you see this thing where I can go compete, even if it's just against yourself. You're like, I want to beat my time. I want to get the most rounds. I want to see how I compare with other people. Yeah. And when done in a good way, it's very powerful, and it's and I love it. And I did CrossFit for years. I was in CrossFit gyms. I was certified and all that. So, I really do credit them with bringing that model to the forefront. And that's why we have Orange Theory, and that's why we have F45, because they're modeling that because some people didn't want that hardcore CrossFit that a lot of us have come to know, but they still crave that group community, little more personal interaction, but they don't need one-on-one. They don't need one person hovering over them the whole time. And that's my model as well, you know? So we got 5 to 10 people in there getting their ass handed to them all at the same time, doing the same workout, having fun, working hard. And the bonds that we form in there are powerful because there's such power in shared suffering. You know, you were an athlete, so you know the ups and downs of being in that team environment. And when you win together, and when you lose together, and that the responsibility that comes with it and the camaraderie that comes with it and all that stuff is fantastic. And I really do. I think CrossFit, if there's one thing they did extremely well, it was that. And it allowed me to kind of look around and go, okay, how can I extract the good from that? And then take out some of that other shit that I didn't really care for and put my spin on things to create what I have.
Yeah. Because there is a difference, man, that I see with your gym. I've been part of CrossFit gyms too. And there's the good and the bad, right?
Absolutely.
Like you said, right, is, you know, the certifications, but ultimately, here's what I love about that. And here's what I love about the fact that those types of workouts then came around was the dealing with whether you're an athlete or whether you were in the military or whether you were just somebody at home who was dealing with some sort of post-traumatic stress. Because when you go from being, and I've been there, is go from being a high performance athlete to working out every day, 6 days a week, busting your ass, going nuts, to all of a sudden it just stops.
Yeah.
And your body and your mind go, for a small period of time, go, oh, okay, I feel a little bit better. And then after about 3 months, you're like, what the hell is going on? And then it just becomes like a spiral effect of where you see a lot of, you know, even guys that I talk to now who are friends of mine that have gotten out of the military, right? Like if they don't get significant amounts of exercise, they fall right back into this PTSD thing and they spiral effect real fast.
Yeah, I believe
and
it.
I mean, it's tough. It's really tough because, you know, knowing, and you've seen me work out, and I've actually had people ask me questions about, well, why do you work out that hard, dude? You know, my answer is always, that's the only place that I find tranquility out of my day between, in my mind, is everything shuts off. I don't have to worry about it. I'm in a gym around other people. I look at the board and I go to work.
I've often said, like, you want to solve your problems right now, go run sprints.
Right? Yeah.
You can't think about anything else. Like if you're running as hard as you can, or you're cranking out, you know, 25, 30, 50 burpees at a time, there's zero else on your mind other than what's happening in that present moment. And it's great because of what I said before. Like we're so inundated with information nonstop. I don't know what the stat is, but the amount of information that we receive in a day is greater than what we used to receive in a lifetime not that long ago. So you think about everything that comes at us, everything on our phone, computers, advertisements, just driving around, you know, billboards and signs. You don't think about it, but we receive all that every single day. So if you can find any way to shut it up, like you ever try meditating? You know, I meditate and either one of two things happens. I fall asleep or I got a fucking 1,000 thoughts in my head. I'm like, why am I thinking that? That wasn't even there before, you know? So in those moments of hard work, you're right. You can shut it down because all you're concerned about is just keep breathing. Don't pass out. Take a deep breath, dumbass. Here we go. You know,
Don't throw up.
and it's great. And I think what happens in the aftermath, you probably experienced this quite a bit just because of how hard you work. Like then you get that flood of problem solving or brainstorming or thoughts, or, you know, the thing you've been mulling over for weeks trying to figure out a solution to it. All of a sudden you're like, oh shit, that's the solution, because you gave your brain a chance to rest, you know, even if it was 30 minutes, and now you get to solve something.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I can't tell you how many times during 75 hard. That's why 75 hard works so well. Like how many times I solved big problems or moved things forward in my business or my life because I was out running and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, and I sometimes I had to stop and like pull my phone out, and put a note down, just so I wouldn't forget it. But it's powerful. People don't give it enough credit. It solves a lot of problems. A lot of
Yes,
problems.
it does, man. It does. And it's so important. It's one of the reasons why I placed it in those pillars. It's one of the reasons why I think I've watched even my clients that I work with that are working with you as well, that are becoming that much more successful in a short period of time is because they're being able to focus on that. And even if that's the only time of your day that you get to focus on you, because there's 500 or 5,000 other things that are going wrong or right, it's the one time that it's you against you. And it's freaking fantastic, man. I used to want to compete against everybody else, but now it's just it's a competition against myself. And
you learn quickly. You're never going to win the competition battle against others. And even if you win, it's temporary. There's only one fastest guy in the world right now until he's not the fastest guy in the world and somebody else is. There's only one richest person in the world. And those two are just going to go back and forth, probably for the rest of our lifetime. I don't know that anybody's going to overtake them until they die. But guess what happens when they die? Somebody else is the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to win that battle, but you can win the battle against yourself. And that looks different every day. For you right now, like you're injured, right? But guess what? You're still showing your ass up to the gym and doing what you can do. That's winning the battle. So your battle win today doesn't look like it did 3 weeks ago when you came in and crushed some dumbass workout I had on the board, right? Like it's a totally different thing. And so again, we have to have awareness of what winning that battle actually looks like from a day-to-day basis. Some people, like, honestly, getting out of bed is winning the battle. Other people, it's speaking in front of 1,000 people, they won the battle. It really is individual. And you just have to be honest with yourself what that really looks like and not let yourself off the hook either. Oh, I won. No, you didn't. Like sometimes you think you won, but you didn't win shit. But also give yourself that grace and give yourself credit for the things that you are accomplishing. And that goes back to, we talk about core values all the time and having a clear purpose and vision for your life. And if you can lay your head down at night and know that, you know what, I upheld my core values and I lived with intention. And if I died today and I didn't wake up tomorrow, then that mission felt good.
I love it.
People don't think about it. That's the problem. Like there's too many people that they put zero thought into anything other than just existing. And then they wonder why they're so unhappy and unfulfilled. And they may have money, they may not have money, they may, have a spouse, they may not, they may have kids, they may not have kids, they may live in a nice place, they may live in a shitty place. But the human plight is the same across the board. It never changes. It never has. You've heard me say it before. You read Stoic philosophy from 2,000 years ago, and if you change the language to modern language, you would have no idea it was written 2,000 years ago. Because people have been dealing with the same bullshit forever. Jealousy, greed, envy, money, sex, health, like it's always the same. And for the few people that are actually willing to dive into that and whatever you want, hack it, whatever you want to call it, nowadays are the ones that are really going to live a fulfilled life, whatever that looks like for you.
I agree. It's about creating that harmony. You have those different pillars in your life, and there is no balance, right? There's only going to be that harmony that you can get. And when you follow your own rules, right? Like those core values, for those of you out there listening that don't really or have never tried to create core values, like it's something that's changed my life. I know it's something that's changed yours. It's a common theme around the people that we're around is they have their own personal core values that they live by, and that's how they make their decisions. And it's incredibly important to get clear on who you are. Like, who do you want to be? And it's a very hard question to ask yourself, because you're going to go through iterations of it, like as you accomplish different things throughout your life. But it will always come back to your core values and how they fulfill you and create harmony in your life. Because when you're surrounded by the wrong people, one of my core values is relationships matter, right? Like, but the right relationships have to matter.
Yeah.
And another one is love those who love you back, right? Because that's a big thing, is you don't want to get taken advantage of. I've had experiences in my life where I felt like that, and I don't want to be surrounded by people who I feel like are there to just take all the time and not necessarily give back. And I think that that's incredibly important and a very valuable lesson for anybody listening, is like, when you get clear on that kind of stuff, you're going to find that the choices are going to be hard up front, but they become a lot easier later on.
Yeah. I mean, my core values are my filter for everything that I do now.
Yeah.
So when it comes time to make a meaningful decision, really any decision, honestly, I just run them through my core values. Does it match? Does it align? Does it fulfill my purpose? Yes. Okay, go. No. Okay, don't. I mean, super, super simple, but you're right. In the beginning, for a lot of people, especially if you're not surrounded with good people, you're gonna have choices to make. We hear it all the time, people that disassociate themselves from friends, friends they've had for 15, 20 years, people that essentially, disconnect from their immediate family, not their spouse and kids, but, parents, in-laws, aunts, uncles, just toxic family members that are always judging them from a place of scarcity and fear of their own. And the question of who you are is so powerful. It's the question I ask on my own podcast. And when I ask that question, I'd say 90% of the time, there's a long pause. I go, who are you? And they're like, oh, man, wow, that's a really good question. And I can see the wheels turning and trying to figure out, okay, what do I say now? Who am I? In that moment, they're like, well, who the fuck am I? I don't know. But again, it goes to the fact, like, most people never think about who they are. And I can't sit here and say that even maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know that I could have answered that like intelligently. I'll blurt something out. I have no problem saying things, but I don't know that I could have answered that intelligently up until maybe just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Nobody asked.
Question. It's a hard question.
Nobody started asking. I'll be honest. No one started asking that question. Like, even when we were in college, right? Like, to go back to your point earlier, right? When we first started was, well, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was growing up. You know what? Funny story for you is, my dad asked me that question. I go, I want to be a garbage man. I want to sit on the back of a garbage truck because it's out in the air. I'll grab some trash, throw it in the back of a garbage truck. It'll be all good. He was mortified.
I hear those guys make pretty good money, actually.
They actually do. That was his response.
Nobody wants to do the job now, right?
That was his response to me, is they actually make good money. What? Are you serious? Right? I'm like 4, right? Whatever. So but it's funny to think of like where you end up, right? And
there's an old quote, and I think it's attributed to John Lennon, but I could be wrong. But it's basically, the stories like the teacher says, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, the kids go around, I want to be this, I want to be that. It's like, I want to be happy. How about that? Like, that's what I want.
I want to see some data on that, man. I really would love to see some kids who say that, where they're at, like later in life.
I want to be happy when I grow up.
Yeah, we're still growing up, man. On the daily. It's fun though, and I think it's honestly, I will say this, Mark, it's been an incredible pleasure to be able to work with you, because everybody here, Mark helped me get over a significant fear of mine, of having like a significant back injury that was very paralyzing to me, and not just, the physical manner, but also my mental capacity of just incredibly scared to get back into the gym and start moving some weights, because I didn't want to get back to where I was, and the pain and the mental like depression and anxiety that it was that created in my life while I was starting my first business, which was like quite possibly the worst time you could ever have that happen to you, right? But through surrounding myself, with people within the Apex network, within Arte network, within my friends that are out there, that are probably going to listen to this, and they're gonna go, yeah, I remember that, dude. Yeah, I remember that. It actually made me so much more tough mentally than I realized. And after I've reflected over it for the past 12 months of, how it was then to where I am now, and getting back to feeling like I'm getting back to a higher level of performance. It's really, honestly, I have to do the work, but being surrounded by you, being surrounded by the community within the gym, those are all the things that have really changed a lot for me in a short span of time. So I wanted to thank you for that.
I really appreciate that, man. What's really cool about that is, like, when you started working with me, like, we didn't sit down and have some big conversation about all the things you've gone through in your life. And like, you made me aware of your injuries and limitations, or, things that you just need to be cautious of, but we didn't have some deep, meaningful conversation in the beginning.
Right.
But what's cool about it is I just showed up as me. That's it, because I know who I am now. So I was able to show up and serve you in the way that I serve, and you were willing to show up and do the work, and then cool shit happened, right?
Yeah.
Nothing was forced. I didn't have to pretend to know shit I didn't know. You didn't have to suck it up or whatever the fuck, the bullshit that we tell ourselves, like, oh, fuck, I guess it just hurts now. Like, none of that had to happen. Like, you were honest with yourself. I show up as me and who I am and what I do, and make no mistakes about it. That I am good at what I do. I know that I'm probably better with the people aspect of it than maybe the training aspect of it, but who knows, but I just got to show up and do what I do best. And that's what's really cool about that whole story, is that it was the natural progression of you and I working together. And I recognize the people that are willing to do the work, which is, thankfully, most of the people in the gym are like that. I really am incredibly blessed with people that show up ready to go. But, you do work a little bit harder than a lot of people. You're willing to almost throw up every time, and most people aren't willing to do that. I'm not. I don't want to throw up. I don't like it. But
you told me it wasn't good for me, so I stopped trying to do it.
but I recognize that, because I recognize those who are really, it's more than what's happening there. And so for me, I think a lot of times I kind of latch on to those people a little bit extra, just because I'm like, all right, what are you really trying to achieve here? Like, what are you trying to prove to yourself, to someone else? Like, what purpose in the world are you trying to figure out? Where you fit in this thing? And so I really enjoy that aspect of things, and I enjoy the conversations that are had in the gym. And so it's really awesome. It's been really fun to see what you've accomplished, but really just to get to know you and who you are as a human being, because you're giving, you're caring, you're kind. You really do. To me, there's a certain type of person it takes to actually care about other humans, and not that people are cold and callous, but like there's levels to that. Some people say, oh, I care about people, and they do, but there's levels, and I see that in you, especially with, your coaching that you've gotten into with win rate. Like, you really do give a shit, and I don't think you can teach that. You can teach skill sets and systems and processes and all that, but you can't teach people to care about other humans. Yeah. So it's really cool. It's really fun to watch. And it honestly, like, it makes me excited for you too, to see where you go with all this.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for that. Honestly, it is. It's an honor to hear you say that. It is.
Man, I just speak the truth.
I love it. I love it. So, let me just, I think this is probably a good place to wrap up. And I just wanted to say, you're changing lives online and here in Dallas. So, where can people find you? How can they interact and engage with you? Because I see clients coming on board from all over the country with you right now. even Mike over at Win Rate with Silverback and what you got going on over there, which is going to be super fun. I told him not to call me for the 20 weeks that you're going to make him cut. I was like, text messages, please. No, but really, in all honesty, Mark is a phenomenal trainer. And he's one of those people who really does care and has a great ability to program around the things that are ailing you. I would not be sitting here today had I not had a great conversation with you in August about that, and feeling comfortable that you were the right person to take me on the journey that I needed to get back to the best version of me. So I just wanted to give you a chance to share that with people, and also say, you're a rock star, man. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it, man. So if anybody's interested, the website is markzfitness.com. That's MARC, because I spelled my name the right way. I do have a gym in Northwest Frisco, Texas. Would love to have you in anytime. So hit me up on that. I do offer online coaching, nutrition coaching. I do business coaching. I really do just run my mouth a lot. It's kind of what I do.
You're so good at it.
You can find my book, Make Good Choices, on the Amazons. It is out there. We're almost coming up on a year anniversary of that, which just boggles my mind. And that was such a fun project to do. I'm not even done with it yet. I got more stuff coming soon for that. And then on the Facebooks, that's like my second residence. So just look me up on Facebook. I'm not at 5,000 friends yet. So, if you want to be a friend, come be a friend with me. But thank you so much for having me on, man. I always appreciate you and your time. And it's been fun.
Absolutely, man. Always an honor. I look forward to it.
Make good choices, kids.
Yeah.